I'm Jim Barterman from Jackson, Mississippi. In describing your allocation of capital to your wholly owned subsidiaries, you wrote in the annual report that, quote, you charge managers a high rate for incremental capital they employ and credit them at an equally high rate for capital they release, end quote. How do you determine this high rate, and how do they determine how much capital they can release?
Well, what we try to do with those arrangements, the questions about incentive arrangements we have with managers or other situations where we either advance capital to a wholly owned subsidiary or withdraw it. Usually that ties in with a compensation plan, and we want our managers to understand just how highly we do value capital, and we feel there's nothing that creates a better understanding than to charge them for it. So we have different arrangements. Sometimes it's based a little on the history of the company. It may be based a little bit on the industry. It may be based on interest rates at the time that we first draw it up. We have arrangements depending on on those variables and perhaps some others, and perhaps just how we felt the day we drew it up, that range between 14% and 20% in terms of capital advanced. And sometimes we have an arrangement where, if it's a seasonal business, where for a few months of the year when they have a seasonal requirement, we give it to them very cheap at LIBOR, but if they use more capital over beyond that, we start saying, well, that's permanent capital, so we charge them considerably more. Now, if we buy a business that's using a couple $100 million of capital, and we work out a bonus arrangement, and the manager figures out a way to do the business with less capital, we may credit him at a very high rate, same rate we would use in charging him in terms of his bonus arrangement. So we believe in managers knowing that money costs money, and I would say that just generally my experience in business is that most managers, when using their own money, understand that money costs money, but sometimes managers, when using other people's money, start thinking of it a little bit like free money, and that's a habit we don't want to encourage around Berkshire. By sticking these rates on capital, we are telling the people who own our business how much capital is worth to us. And I think that's a useful guideline in terms of the decisions they're making, because we don't make very many decisions about our operating businesses. We make very, very few. I don't see capital budgets in most cases from our 100% owned subsidiaries, and if I don't see them, no one else sees them. I mean, we have no staff at headquarters looking at this kind of thing. We give them great responsibility on them, but we do want them to know how we calibrate the use of capital. And so far, I would say it's really worked quite well. Our managers don't mind being measured, and they like getting. I think they enjoy seeing a batting average posted, and a batting average that does not include a cost of capital is a phony batting average. Charlie?
Well, I certainly agree.
Yes, thank you. I'm Jim Ludke from Phoenix, Arizona, and I haven't been to one of your annual meetings for about 10 years now. The last one was down at the Red Lion Inn by the water, and I congratulate you on your popularity. I wish I'd bought more stock. But like Charlie, I too have been giving mine away for charitable purposes, so your beneficial effects have reciprocated and rippled throughout the economy. I congratulate you.
I congratulate you.
What do you think has changed? Well, one thing is that Ben Graham, commenting on what you just said, I'm a student of Ben Graham, and he said it never ceased to amaze me how widely read he was and least followed. But how have you changed in the last 10 years? I mean, much, if any, or none at all, or...
Well, we'll let Charlie. He's been watching me.
I'd say about one stone. Takes one to know one.
Yeah. If we'd wanted to change, we would have changed a long time ago. I mean, I've never believed much in this theory of, if I have X 2x instead of x, then I'm going to do this or that, and or I'll take this job I don't like now and I'll get one I like later on. Or it doesn't make much sense to me. I mean, there aren't that many years around, so you ought to be doing what you like at the present time. And Charlie and I have always followed that pretty well. Zone 4.
Peter Borma, Chicago. Every year you have your operating company send a check back to Omaha. What percentage do the heads of the operating companies keep as a bonus, and how do you set that figure?
Well, we have different bonus arrangements at different companies. It'd be a big mistake with businesses with as many different economic characteristics or varying economic characteristics as existing as they do at Berkshire to try and have some formula approach that paid managers in all of these different businesses based on a simple formula of one kind. So we have, I think, 4 businesses where they own a part of it, and we have varying arrangements with the various businesses. Some businesses, capital employed is unimportant. There simply isn't a way to employ a lot of capital. So we do not have a capital charge even at those businesses. We don't believe in going through a lot of machinations if it's going to involve peanuts at the end. So some businesses have a capital charge, some businesses don't have a capital charge. If they use a lot of capital, they're going to have a capital charge is what it amounts to. Some businesses are easy businesses, some businesses are tougher businesses. So we have different thresholds where things kick in based on it. We simply sit down and try and figure out, in the case of each business, what makes sense. And that usually isn't very hard to figure out. I mean, we want something that's fair. The best managers, we aren't going to change their behavior much by the compensation thing. We may a little bit in terms of teaching them how we think about capital employed, but in terms of their enthusiasm for the business, imagination and marketing and all that, basically we usually buy businesses with those people in place. But it would be it'd be wrong not to treat people fairly, and they would resent it if they weren't treated fairly too, understandably. So we try to have a system that rewards the things that we want to have rewarded and treats them fairly in a way that they understand they're treated fairly. And I don't think we have any 2 businesses that have the same arrangement. I mean, they're different in each case. Incidentally, that applies in their policies too. We don't get into very seldom, I should say, and maybe once or twice, but they have different arrangements in terms of compensating their employees. Some of our businesses have budgets, some of them don't. We don't have any budgets that come up to headquarters. That we let 400 hitters swing the way they want to swing, and some of them, have a little different swings than others, but overall they're extremely effective, and we want them to feel like they own their own business. But, if somebody that's independently wealthy sold us a business and we started telling them how to swing, they would tell us what we could do with it very quickly, because they don't need that in life. So what we have to do is create a situation or maintain a situation where they're having more fun doing what they're doing than anything else they can do in life. And that's what we're designing for. And then we have to treat them fairly in respect to that. Charlie?
Nothing to add. Yeah, to the extent that the method of estimating future cash flow requires projections, I would say that projections, while they're logically required by the circumstances, on average do more harm than good in America. Most of them are put together by people who have an interest in a particular outcome, and the subconscious bias that goes into the process and its apparent precision makes it it's fatuous or dishonorable or foolish or what have you. Mark Twain used to say, a mine is a hole in the ground owned by a liar. And a projection prepared in America by anybody with a commission or an executive trying to justify a particular course of action will frequently be a lie. It's not a deliberate lie in most cases. It's the man has gotten to believe it himself, and that's the worst kind. So I don't think projections are to be handled with great care, particularly when somebody has an interest in misleading you.
Charlie and I think it's fair to say we've never looked at a projection in connection with either a security we bought or a business we bought. We've had them offered to us in great quantities. The fact that we voluntarily turned them away when people tried to thrust them upon us. I mean, the very fact that they are prepared so meticulously by the people who are selling the businesses or by the executives who are presenting to their boards and all of that sort of thing. You know, I mean, either we're wrong or they're wrong. I mean, it's a ritual that managers go through to justify doing what they wanted to do in the first place. In about nine cases out of 10, I have never met an executive who wanted to buy something that said, well, I had to turn it down because the projections didn't work. I mean, it's never happened. And there will always be somebody that will come up with the projections that will satisfy the guy who's signing his paycheck or who will sign the deal that provides the commissions. And they will pass those along to whomever else they need, the bankers or the board to approve it. And it is total nonsense. I was recently involved in a situation where projections were a part of the presentation, and I asked that the record of the people who made the projections, their past projections, also be presented at the same time. It was a very rude act, and
it was regarded as apostasy.
But believe me, it proved the point. I mean, it was a joke. I mean, so we'll leave it at that.